everyone. We are live on multiple platforms. Welcome everyone to Facebook for those of you who are watching, and also onto YouTube for those who are watching, and onto Periscope. This is very exciting. Ben, you get the honor of this. multiple
Fantastic.
multiple streaming, guys. Wow. First time ever I'm doing something like this, and we already got people coming in. Thank you so much for joining us. Just to let you know, my name, for those of you who never seen me before and also never seen Ben before, Ben on this side. This is, so I'm Linora. I'm from Malaysia, and next to me is Benjamin Siong. He's the founder and master strength coach at Australian Strength Performance. So Ben, intro yourself, please.
I thought you meant to do the intro. I'm doing the intro right now.
Right.
I
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
okay. Let's keep this short. My name is Benjamin Siong. For those of you that don't know me, I am the founder of Australian Strength Performance. We are a strength and conditioning brand situated in Melbourne, and this is Melbourne, Australia. And currently, all gyms are closed in Melbourne, but I'm in my office and I'm doing this podcast live, and I'm really excited to get some information out to you guys. The brand Australian Strength Performance is dedicated to personalized solutions, and my passion really is in bringing a lot of these scientific theories that you see out there into an understandable, applicable language that trainers as well as clients alike can actually apply it to their daily lives and actually get results. That's the most important thing. So I'm really hoping to simplify some of the answers that you guys are going to get today based on the questions you're asking, and to shed some light on some of these questions as well.
Excellent. Just to let you know, Ben, just some catch up. Malaysia has not say lifted it's not lifted this quarantine, but they have relaxed it, which, in my honest opinion, I do not know why they would do that. We're doing well, but today, oh, by the way, happy May the 4th be with everybody today, for those of you who are Star Wars fans. Yeah. Are you a Star Wars fan, Ben?
No, I'm not.
Did you ever watch any of it?
I have not a single episode.
Okay. Doesn't
Wrong
matter.
person to talk to.
Yeah, I know, it's okay. All right, guys. So here's what's happening. We are doing a question and answer live session, and we already did one on Friday for those of you who didn't get to catch it. And there's some questions there which Ben has already answered. Please go check that out. But right now, Ben is live here with me. So please shoot your questions all the way through. We're, as I said, available on Facebook and also on YouTube. And we already have some questions on Instagram, Ben. So let me get the ball rolling. Before that, just want to say hi to Susanna Yu from Australia and also to Stephanie H. Thank you so much for joining us. And let's get to the first question. Oh, by the way, the reason why we're doing this is Ben is a wealth of knowledge. I like to call him the walking encyclopedia. And he really is. His depth of knowledge and the way he answers questions, it goes in a completely different route that is very different from the usual things that you see in the fitness scene. So I really appreciate that. And Ben also happens to be my coach. Can say, right, Ben?
Absolutely.
Coach, mentor, friend. Okay, first question that we are going to touch on. Okay. This is from Jamie, Ben, and it goes straight into a question that asks, how did you manage rejections in the beginning of your career? So this is more for coaches, I would say fitness professionals. How did you manage rejections in the beginning of your career? Wow, talk about jumping straight into stuff.
Okay, so I assume that this is in relation to personal training itself, and I'm speaking to a trainer. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. The word rejection is carries with it a very negative connotation. I think whenever someone tells you they don't want your services or they don't deem your services as something that's essential for them, I won't use the term rejection. To me, I don't actually see it as rejection. When someone says that, okay, that's fine, I don't want to have your services or take on your services, it can mean a couple of things. Essentially, as a personal trainer, your role is to identify the needs of the client. And I've always said this. Most personal trainers are very quick to sell their services. That means if you've got a service, you're going out there and you're selling it. But you're selling something to someone without identifying their need. Now, how can you assume that your service will meet the need of that particular client? So before you start anything off, I think the role of a personal trainer is learning how to identify the needs of a client. Now, the needs of a client comes a lot deeper than the client telling you stuff, because telling can also mean they want to hear you out, they want to see what you can offer, but it doesn't mean that you have dug deep enough. The role of a personal trainer is listening to their client, keeping quiet, actually staying quiet and listening to their client and seeing what they have to say. Sometimes you are only as effective as the questions you ask. If you ask the right questions, you will get the right answers. If you ask the wrong questions, like how's the weather today, tell me a bit about your fitness goals, you're not going to get anything but surface answers. Now you want to dig a little bit deeper. What is the reason the person is sitting there in front of you? Do they have an issue with self-confidence? Do they have an issue with hormones that they may have felt that they had, but they haven't asked or spoken to anyone about it? You need to be that person to dig that out. Once you can identify the needs of the client sitting in front of you, you can then offer a solution. That is, if you have the capacity to give the right solution. And again, I tell trainers, do not overstep your boundaries. If you do not feel you have the skills or the capacity to give that solution to that client, then refer them out. So rejection is really a way to saying that you haven't firstly identified the deeper needs of the client. You have sold your services without identifying a need. Because if you can identify the need of the client and match it with a solution, there will not be a client that will reject your services. You've given them what they want. You've given them what they need. They will buy into you. But you have to first invest your time in understanding them. Make sense?
Makes sense. Taking me as an example, Ben, how long did it take for you to understand me?
You keep talking. I don't have to do the work. You gave me all the answers, Linora.
So it's handy when you got a client who is very talkative like myself. But yeah, asking the right questions and digging enough to understand your client as much as possible. This next question, it comes from Angela. Oh, Yinsin is here, and she's you could say she's a calisthenic teacher in Malaysia, and also Edmund from Taiwan is also here with us already, Ben. Okay.
Ed?
Yeah, Ed. He has a nice
Great.
bicep sign saying, "Here I am." All right, here is Angela's question. Angela asks, what's a good ratio of fat, carbs, and protein during the luteal phase?
It depends on the female itself. So we talked about, and I assume this is Angela, which I know as well, who has probably done my classes and my courses.
Yep.
If you're asking a question like that, you need to understand some background information. And Angela is asking with regards to a female cycle. During the female cycle, that is typically on an average 28 days, the two main phases, the follicular phase and the luteal phase. Follicular phase tends to be from day 1 to day 14, and the luteal phase goes after day 15 to day 28. In the two different phases, the body utilizes substrates differently and slightly differently. So in the follicular phases, where females tend to be better in utilizing carbs as a fuel, in the luteal phase, the body is better utilizing fat as a fuel. But in saying so, what I found anecdotally is that the more severe the period, the more the female will require carbohydrates. Okay, and again, this is not it is not your scientific research. This is not research based, but this is how I have actually dealt with a lot of my female clients. Carbohydrates is a very important source. We spoke about this last week when we spoke through this interview. And carbohydrates is a really good source over the menstrual cycle of a female for a couple of reasons. One of them is to mitigate stress, right? Mm-hmm. But also during the female cycle, the more severe the period or the PMS, the more the female tends to crave carbohydrates as well as sugars. If I then give them the carbohydrates that they need from a source that I choose, say a starchy carb source or a whole carb source, what tends to happen, it will mitigate a lot of their irrational sugar craving. So during PMS, if you have a severe PMS, you realize that you go into the fridge and you start going for sweets and chocolates, and sometimes you do not control yourself, and you cannot control yourself. Literally, you end up eating the whole bar of chocolate, and then you suddenly realize, oh gosh, I've eaten the whole bar. Where's the bar gone? You are not at fault here. Really, your internal hormonal levels are pushing your body to think in a different way, so much so that you're doing things where even your rational decisions can't actually contradict that or can't actually combat that per se, right? So you're going according to the flow of your body. Giving your body carbs at that point of time is definitely going to help. So going back again to Angela's question is, what is the ratio? The ratio is based on a variety of different factors. Firstly, you need to look at what type of training the female is doing, right? If the female is doing more strength training, she would definitely require more carbs. Without carbs, you're not able to lift significant loads, right? Secondly, we also need to look at things like how severe is the period, because the more severe the period, the more carbs you would need to take in. Mm-hmm. Thirdly, we will also need to look at what sort of a diet or nutritional plan was the female on before. If the female is used to something which is on a lower carb diet, and they've always been on the sort of low carb diet, then that increase in carbs may not be over significant. Whereas if this female has been on a diet that has always been a high carb diet, then the increase in carbs may be more in that sense. And so the ratio is going to be extremely subjective. So all I'm trying to point out here is that there is no one magic bullet, one answer, unfortunately. There isn't a specific ratio. It really varies from individual to individual. And again, the menstrual cycle is a topic, Linora, that we can talk on. I mean, if a lot of our viewers are interested in understanding the female cycle, we can definitely do a specific talk like this on the female cycle, let them understand a lot more, and I'm sure that will be very popular. But it's a topic that will take a lot more time than the 5 minutes that I've explained it here.
Yep, definitely. And I think it's very important for all coaches, males. Also, you need to understand about your female clients as much as you can't always blame the females for losing their mind. There's a reason why they do it the time of the month. Okay. All right. This one is coming from Andrew, and he asks, yes, Ben, how do I increase my weight load in a bench press? I feel weak at my anterior deltoids. We got a training question. Nice.
Great. Okay. So this question, again, there are many different ways to answer it because I don't know your training background. One of the biggest feedback or tips that I can give you at this point of time, Andrew, is start to work on the smaller muscles. Most people, when they do any sort of pressing movements, are massively engaged in the bigger or your prime muscles. So in a bench press, you will get your pecs, you will get your anterior deltoids, you will also get your lats, because your lats is a stabilizer. And if you look at any powerlifters, for example, a lot of them would utilize their lats as a source of strength for the bench press. Okay, the stronger your lats can contract, the more stable your foundation of pressing is, and the stronger your press would be. But a lot of people tend to overlook the muscles that help to stabilize the whole movement. So specifically, I'm talking about your 4 rotator cuff muscles. These are smaller stabilizer muscles that wrap across your capsule, your shoulder capsule per se. All right, so your shoulder capsule is a ball and socket joint, and it is not a very deep ball and socket joint. It's a shallow ball and socket joint, and these muscles kind of wrap around it to hold it in place. If, for example, you overtrain your prime muscles, your prime movers in any sort of pressing movements, what tends to happen is that your anterior delts will get a lot stronger than your rotator cuff muscles. And this will cause a clicking movement every time you press. And these are the people that go click, clack, and they get a lot of shoulder clicking. And when you get a lot of shoulder clicking, exactly, we get a lot of shoulder clicking, but there is no pain, we are primed to do something when there is something wrong. And to us, pain means something's wrong. If there's no pain and there's clicking, it's okay. Well, that's a clear sign that it is an injury waiting to happen. Do not wait till there is pain before you address it. If there is a clicking noise, that means that your humerus, this bone right up here in your arms, is actually popping out of your socket. That just means that your anterior deltoids, most of the time, is way too strong for your rotator cuff muscles, and it's pulling it out of the socket. Your rotator cuff works to hold it back in this ball and socket joint. So what you will need to do is start working on your rotator cuff muscles. And in fact, one of my posts on Instagram was dedicated to this, is that the fact that now that you are in an isolated position at home and you don't have big weights to press, this is the time where you can focus on your smaller muscle groups, such as your rotator cuff muscles. Start working on a lot of the external rotation work, because most of us are internally rotated. So arms are turned in. We need to work on external rotation work. So focus on the smaller stabilizer muscles and take time, dedicate that towards your bench pressing. So for example, if you have a 12-week program that is specified to pressing, so a 12-week specialization press program, within that 12 weeks, I would dedicate at least 6 weeks and put a portion of your training time to working on stabilizer muscles. Okay, and this 6 weeks will be split into, so if let's say you have a 12-week block of training, within a 12-week block, I typically like to do 3 weeks per phase. Okay, so 3 weeks, phase 1, 3 weeks, phase 2, 3 weeks, phase 3, 3 weeks, phase 4. These phases represent different styles of training to build your body up to a final goal where you are the strongest. Typically in phase 1 and phase 3 is where I'll put in rotator cuff training.
Phase 1 and phase 3. Okay. Okay. Andrew, I hope that answers your question. I want to add a question to this. Ben, okay, so here's most of the time, females in general, they enjoy doing different types of training programs. So I want to address it for people because I was once upon a time there myself, of where I enjoyed doing different kinds. But here we're talking about it's very important for people to stick to a particular program. Then only they can see the changes they want to. They can grow properly. They can strengthen themselves properly. So can you please tell why we should not jump from program to program, say in a span of 2 weeks? Because sometimes they're doing like say
Well,
HIIT, and then suddenly they're doing a training program, they're doing a strength, and then they're doing something else.
I think it depends on the goals of the individual, Lenora. You need to clearly set out your goals. And again, those of you that listen to me understand that my approach is all about individualization and specificity. Okay, in some people take a period of time to adapt to a program. Any given program that you give them, a person can take up to 8 repetitions of that particular program to adapt. That means after 8 times on doing the same program again and again, the body plateaus. So a lot of people going to this gym are under the preconception that they have to continually change things up to shock the body. That is a misconception. When you're given a particular program per se, the thing that you need to change up is progress from one program to another. So if you have the same program, let's say on Monday you're doing a particular program. If the next time you're doing this program again is on a Friday or on a Thursday, for example, your goal is to progress yourself. Progression comes through a variety of different ways. You can have an overload. Okay, we call it progressive overload. And this overload could come by increasing the weight that you're using. It could come by increasing the reps that you're using. It could come by decreasing the rest times that you're using. It could come by working so much so that your form is better from one program to another. The speed of how you move the load is better on the second program than it is the first program. So same program, but you are objectively progressing from one program to another. That progress is critical. That progress forces your body into new changes that you want. And in your case, it could be fat loss. It could be building lean muscle hypertrophy, right? So that progress is important. Now, you need to continually do this because it forms a base. Each program forms a base of progression, one after the other, until you have hit the point where you are unable to progress anymore. We call that a plateau. The best results you can get is, rather than shocking your body, is to move through the same program via small progressions until you plateau. Once you plateau, then you change the program up. But I mentioned earlier that it takes about 8 repetitions for an individual to adapt to a particular program, right? Depending on how often you do that particular program. And this is a very average individual. The more coordinated you are, and this is one of the principles of programming, the more coordinated you are, the more often you will need to change your program. If I'm training one of my top BJJ athletes, for example, I may need to change programs up every 2 repetitions of the program. Okay. There's also how often you change the program has to do with a person's personality and neurotransmitters. And what I mean by that, if it's someone who is I would say a very A-type personality, very dominant A-type personality, who needs a lot of variety and specificity, they may need to change their programs up often, because not that their body is adapted to the program, but their brain is adapted to the program. And when your brain is adapted to the program, your progress is also stagnated. So I'm drawing here again, I'm giving you different levels of understanding of how programs can be changed and why they need to be changed. Now, that's a topic I personally haven't spoken with you at all about. So I can see you going, what is Ben talking about? There is a lot more to programming than what meets the eye. Okay, what you hear from me, that's only the surface. We've got a lot to talk about.
You're going to talk about that in the internship, right?
Yes, correct.
Actually, okay, just coming back a bit. How do you find out about the personality? Is there like a testing that people can do, or is it just because you had the honest psychology?
No, nothing like that at all. I mean, these are theories that are being investigated or correlated through different individuals. Charles Baldwin was an individual that talked about it. The other person that you can kind of look at is Kristen Thibodeau, and he is a T-Nation author, but also, he's got his own sort of neurotyping module where you can understand how to relate different personality types to programming. But this is the one thing I got to let you guys know, that theory is all in good. People love to learn things like that. But theory is one thing. The application of that theory is another. So don't be quick to just learn. If you are learning so much that you don't know how to apply, then that knowledge is useless as well. Okay, you need to know how to weave it in your client's programming. And this is the one important thing I always bring up about programming, is that I can give you the most and the best optimal programs from a theoretical standpoint. But if my client, for example, is a stay-at-home mom, she's got 5 kids, she needs to look after her family, she doesn't have access to fresh foods, no good foods, and she needs to look at ways of preparing more convenient meals, then any optimal solution I'm going to give her is going to be thrown out the window because her lifestyle does not fit that optimal solution. You get me? So you need to be on your feet as a trainer, as a coach, to then personalize those solutions that you have for the client, because it's not about how optimal your program is, it's how fitting your program is for that client to get that client optimal results. It's all about the client. It's not about how good your program is. Okay. Problem with the personal trainer nowadays is they like to learn a lot more to try to design the best program without knowing how to apply it. Apply. Okay? Application is key.
And Ben, I'm happy to tell you we've got a question here. This is from YouTube. Let me see if I can pop it over to you. Can you see it? It's from CC.
Where is this?
This is on, Nema, I'll read it to you. You can actually see it on Facebook or even YouTube. So CC here, she says, hi Ben, what is training for women with big lower body part and huge thighs? I know that is no spot reduction and fat loss. Generally, it's very difficult for me to lose thigh fat and lower part abs. Thanks.
So this is your answer, Cici, is that we understand that we cannot train or specifically reduce fat from a particular area of your body via training. Well, from a theoretical point of view, that is correct. However, there are certain things that you need to understand. When you train a particular body part per se, you are increasing blood flow to that specific area. By increasing blood flow to the area, you also encourage your fat stores from adipose tissue to be mobilized and to be utilized. Yes, you cannot spot reduce via training. However, you can increase blood flow to the area, which is also helpful in utilizing fat within the area itself. Now, the second thing we need to understand is a lot of fat storage in the body is actually dictated, or science has actually shown a huge correlation with hormones and any sort of hormonal predisposition that you have. Now, what we understand is that females or males nowadays who tend to store a lot more fat in the lower half, say your thighs, as well as your hips, like what you've mentioned, Cici, is a indication that they may be storing a lot more estrogens within their body itself. And we're talking here about not just natural productions of estrogens that could be exaggerated. We're also talking here about environmental estrogens, and what we call xenoestrogens, that may be accumulated within the body itself. And again, this may come from a variety of different things that are in your environment, from perhaps even your workplaces to fragrances, perfumes, to what is in your food, the water you drink, medication that you take in, and this goes into your body. And your body naturally should have a response to detoxify these external estrogens. However, if your body does not have the right genes per se, or the ability to effectively detoxify these external estrogens, you accumulate them. And in accumulating estrogens in the body, you can start to store fat in the lower half. Now, we in our center, we utilize a particular technique that will help clients through their nutritional process. Now, we call this the bioprint process, and we measure where clients will start to store fat in areas of their body. We draw correlations to how that could be the case, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's genetics, whether it's blood type, so we take a variety of factors into account. We're able to give them a specific nutrition solution to help them through this particular problem. And if you see a lot of my transformations, you will start to see a lot of these females that tend to lean down specifically on the lower half. Now, CC, for yourself, log onto my Instagram at Ben Performance Coach. You would see some of the transformations that I do with my female clients. These are competitors that compete on stage multiple times, and yet they still hold a lot of fat in their lower half until they started working with me, because we're able here to understand the reason why they store fat in the first place and how they're able to eliminate and get rid of fat in the lower half, specifically by cleaning up their diet and lifestyle. So that is possible.
But it can come back, right, Ben? If you don't take care, if it's a progress
100%.
that you must have maintained and be consistent, it can come back. It can. I'm sorry, people, it can. It's not a one-time thing. You get fantastic figure and it stays like that. It doesn't work that way. Okay, this question is from Gayatri Ben. It's actually from my WhatsApp. She just messaged me and she asks, what are your views on carb cycling? So I'm just gonna pop that over to our channel. What are your views about carb cycling?
I think it's great. I think carb cycling is a great way to push the body into different responses. It teaches your body how to handle carbs better. It also teaches your body, it can be used as a tool to lean your body out or to re-glycogenate your muscles when you need it. So there are many ways of using carb cycling, many different methods. Carb cycling was originally a method that has been trialed and used by endurance athletes. Okay, it's nothing to do with body composition. It's nothing to do with health to start off with. Endurance athletes used carb cycling as a method to help them store or re-glycogenate their muscles, because during their long rides or their endurance runs, for example, their body utilizes these carbs as a fuel. And so they preload their body up so that they have a pre-fuel to utilize during their runs. Now, obviously, bodybuilders have seen that and saw the science behind that and started utilizing it on themselves. But if you're using it for body composition or bodybuilding, it's used in a variety of different ways. Bodybuilders can use it leading up towards a show to give their body an appearance that they want to, a plump, full-looking appearance on stage, which is vascular. During their training protocols itself, they can actually use carb cycling as well to lean them down from week to week if they're using it correctly. It also can be used as a tool to kind of spice up your nutrition and teach your body to be more effective in utilizing carbs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I hope that answers for you, Gayatri. And this one now is from Endorphin on Instagram, and she asked kids. Oh, good question. Proper squats, how essential is it, or just let them explore their range of motion first?
Kids, first and foremost, you've asked about proper squats. So question is, what do you deem as a proper squat? So you're only as effective as the questions you ask. I'm reading from you here, and you're talking about kids and proper squats. Now, when I look at kids, the word proper doesn't come into my head, because a kid does what nature has given to them. Whatever they have, they do. If they can run, they run. If they can crawl, they crawl. If they can cry, they cry. They do whatever it is without any rules around them. So the best way to identify what an ideal optimal squat is look at a kid squat. There is no stopping of their range. A kid can go all the way down. That's how a squat should look like. Mm-hmm. Now, if your squat deviates from that, there are a range of reasons why. Lifestyle factors is one of them. Being taught the wrong way to squat or limited range of squat is one of them. Injury, imbalances, adhesions is one of them. There are many ways why our body is the way we are right now. We need to look back on our past experiences, and it takes an educated trainer or coach to identify what is wrong with the squat patterning. So ideally, you should be able to squat ass to grass. That is an optimal squat. But in saying so, everyone right now, every single person has a different starting point. Again, your starting point is based on your past experiences, imbalances, injuries, a whole range of different things. The goal when I work with a client is always to get them to that optimal range that I want them to. However, what is optimal for one person may not be optimal for another. So some people will argue, oh, I can't come down all the way because, I've got long legs. And well, I've worked with really tall individuals before. and I'm talking here about 7'2" proper basketball players that can squat ass to grass. So if they can do it, there is no reason why you can't do it. So the questioning is then, what do you deem as proper? And if your proper squat is up to 90 degrees, why do you see that as proper?
Actually, why has the fitness industry has always said that it's, I mean, prior to me also meeting you, Ben, I was always in under impression that it was a 90-degree squat. If you see any of those magazines, they will always put it at a 90-degree squat for a photo. Why did they even come up with that? Where did it even start?
It came from the legal system, because if someone, for example, is obese
Mm-hmm.
and someone has not squatted past 90 degrees throughout their life. So for example, you were born to squat, you were born to come down all the way, but everything in your life eludes you to squatting to 90 degrees. Look at the chair you're sitting on. You sit down, and where do your knees end? Your knees are at 90 degrees. You go to take a shit today, for example. You go to your toilet. What are you on? You're sitting on a modern day toilet bowl. Your knees are at 90 degrees. Everything in life teaches you to sit to 90 degrees. Civilization, so-called. When you're civilized and you sit to 90 degrees, you negate the bottom range of movement of a squat. This is where your Asian squat comes in, and you go to, places like so-called third world countries, and you look at people sitting on the floor and they're squatting and they're not civilized. Well, that is the way the body's meant to work. Do you realize that from the invention of the modern day toilet bowl, the rate of constipation increased? Because people cannot shit properly sitting on the toilet bowl. People need to go all the way down. And so now they've come up with chairs where you can, or stools where you can actually put your feet on, because that expands your pelvis and opens it up and actually allows the flow of poo to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are doing to ourselves is in fact putting us back to what nature did not intend. And so we're sitting down in this particular way, and we're creating issues for ourselves. So we're only taught to sit to 90 degrees, then we train our bodies to be strong in the upper ranges of the squat and detrain the lower ranges of the squat. So now, if you go into fitness, for example, you're trying to do a squat, if I'm teaching you to go all the way down, you're more than likely to injure yourself, right? Because you're not trained in the lower movements of the squat.
Not used to it.
Not used to it at all. Even though your body was made for it, you've never practiced it. And so what tends to happen is legal suits. If someone gets injured in the gym with a personal trainer, they can legally sue you. And so based on legal suits, what will tend to happen and what has been taken up is the fact that trainers have been taught to teach clients to squat to 90 degrees because that is safer per se. But that is the one reason why we get a lot of knee injuries nowadays, because we overtrain the upper portions of the squat and underutilize the lower portions of the squat, hence leading into a large imbalance in musculature, again, activation. And this is why the knees are not strong at all. Because if you go to a third world country, you would never see the people who squat ass to grass come up to you and complain of the knee issue. That will be the last of their problems. Knee issues and knee problems is a problem of the civilized world, just like constipation.
I tell you, Ben, seriously, I don't know what us humans are doing to ourselves. In fact, there's so many things that for Cece, if you wanted to ask about, sorry, for anybody who wants to know more about the squat, Ben, actually, you did show an example of during one of your, I think it's either a seminar or a course, where you actually did show an example of one lady, she improved her squat immediately on the spot, just from a few tweaks. That's on his Instagram.
A lot of this information has been posted up on Instagram. I give information away. I think it's important for people to understand, because the root of practice comes from understanding. If I tell them to do something but they don't understand it, they're more than likely not to do it. All right, so understand first. So a lot of my information on my Instagram account is all about teaching you to understand. Secondly, if you want to know more about the background of what I'm saying, there is an educational platform that you can hop onto. Okay, so it's learn-asp.com. Learn, learn-asp.com. And this is an educational platform where you can learn more information. There are 20 seminars, online seminars that you can actually purchase and sit down at your own time and watch me run through information like the information you're asking right now, all about spot reduction, all about fat loss, all about building muscle, all about weaker rotator cuff and pressing movements, all that kind of stuff. Please go there, have a look through it, because that information is highly beneficial.
It is. And the website is already up on the screen here. Okay, thanks so much to G on Periscope, man. That's my first ever question on Periscope. And then also Jolene, I'll get to your questions, okay, because it's questions coming from all over the place here. G is asking, what about fasting? Is this good? We're not sure whether this is intermittent fasting. You're talking about fasting during Ramadan, but let's just go fasting.
Fasting in general, let's put it this way. Again, I've said before, the more specific the questions are to me, the better I can answer it. Fasting is such a big topic. It will take me hours to cover it, but I'm going to give you the general gist of it. Do I think fasting is good? Yes. But again, depending on what is your goal? Fasting is great to sharpen your insulin, basically teaches your body to be more insulin sensitive. Fasting is also good because it's shown to actually prolong life to a degree, so for longevity. However, we need to understand the ifs and the buts, and that is, who is using this particular technique? Is it a male or a female? Research has actually shown that males do better or get better results from fasting than females do. Okay, intermittent fasting or fasting for females may not be such a good solution, because a female has a complex interplay of hormones through the month called the menstrual cycle, and this can potentially affect the menstrual cycle and change their hormonal balance, and that's not a positive thing. So we know that Ramadan, for example, will affect females more than it will affect males. But in saying so as well, females, once during the period of Ramadan, if they do have their cycle, they're exempt from actually doing the fast itself. So the religious festival actually does take that into account. Now, fasting can be done for a variety of different reasons, right? What is the reason for fasting? So again, this question, Gia, unfortunately, because it's so broad, I've got so many thoughts of it. It's like asking me, what is your thoughts on using a hammer? Well, you're using a hammer to hammer the nails, it's going to be great. If you're using a hammer to screw in a screw, it's useless. So that's the analogy you guys need to ask me questions from. If you want a specific answer, ask a specific question. So otherwise, there's just too much information floating around.
Okay, this one is from Jolene, and she is asking, she says, oh, sorry, let me just put it here. Jolene says, thanks for your explanation about the importance of working on small supportive muscles. Let's say I have an ankle that clicks. What type of specific exercise should be done to strengthen this muscle?
Okay, so if you look at the ankle, you look at everything above it, directly above it, and everything below it. And so what you find out with the ankle is that apart from the ankle that's clicking, you need to understand a few things first, or I need to understand as a coach. Have you injured your ankle? If you have injured your ankle, how have you done so? So I need to find the etiology of it, whether you have prior injuries, how do you use your ankle? What sort of shoes are you wearing? Because the type of shoes can affect ankle stability as well. And what I mean by that is, if let's say you're used to walking barefooted, your ankle will definitely be a lot stronger, because the soles of your feet are very highly proprioceptive, and it also causes a lot of flex on the muscles on the sole of your feet that can actually help to strengthen your ankle muscles. So the type of shoes play a big role in ankle clicking. What it also tells me is that if you've continually injured that particular ankle, then your ankle is weak. You need to start walking on barefoot. One very, very simple sort of movement that would actually help is actually walking on sand, barefooted. Okay, because the instability of sand per se would actually help to train the muscles around your ankle. Now, also if you are looking at ankle clicking, you look at things like calf stability. Most people don't actively work their calves. Your calves, as well as your anterior tibialis, which is the muscle in front, okay, shin splints, right? That particular muscle, anterior tibialis, needs to be worked as well, because these are all knee stabilizers. So most of the time, if your ankle is clicking, then I'll tell you, you are probably having a knee problem as well, because what happens at the bottom radiates upwards. If your foundation is weak at the bottom, then everything will tend to radiate upwards. And in fact, I'm not surprised if that leads to a hip problem, a shoulder problem, and a neck problem, because it goes all the way up. Okay, so again, ankle injuries, I will need to investigate a lot deeper. And this is kind of the process of what I do with my clients. If I have a client that tells me they've got an injury, I cannot give you a solution until I dig a lot deeper. So interestingly, I'm going to bring this back to the first question you asked me. And the first question that you've asked was regards to what if you face rejection? And I asked about digging a lot deeper. Do you see the way I dig a lot deeper in my questioning and thinking? If my client tells me about an ankle injury and all I'm saying is, oh, you need to train squats, I'm selling them what I think I can do without identifying what caused the ankle injury. So what I'm trying to do is dig. What caused it? What sort of shoes are they wearing? The deeper you dig, the better questions you ask, the more you can understand. The more you understand, you realize what the exact need of the client is. If you can answer that, you have provided them a solution. If I gave you a solution, you would buy into me because I'm only thinking about you and not about selling my products. Right?
Yep. A good coach is also in a way, a detective. All right, we have Ben. Okay, I leave it up to you how long more you want to go because it looks like we have more questions coming in on Facebook and also Instagram. Another question. Okay, this one is from Edmund, all the way in Taiwan, and he says, "Hi, my dear mentor and my sister. How to enhance clients' mentality? Thank you."
I always feel that teaching a client and saying a lot is futile if they cannot see you do it yourself. You understand what I mean by that? Meaning that if you don't walk the walk and you are not that example to that client, the client has nothing to latch onto. They have got no mentorship per se. You are an encyclopedia, you are giving them information, but you're not doing it. It's like if I'm a trainer and I'm, not eating the way I'm telling you to eat, and I'm telling you to do it, are you going to follow that? Now, at the end of the day, sure, we all have our individual battles, but I can only lead someone to a place I've gone through myself. Does it make sense? I put myself into a lot of different situations, and I do that because I feel that it is a way to train my understanding of my body, and it gives me experience. And in that experience, I'm able to help my clients through. That experience doesn't mean that, for example, if I've gone through it, I need to have the willpower to stay away from it, right? If I'm an addict for something, right? If I'm a drug addict, for example, I've gone through the process. Now I'm out of it and I know how to stay away from it. I can help people. But if I keep relapsing, then how am I to give you advice on staying away from drugs? So I think the best way to motivate my clients is to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, is to walk the walk, is to live my life. So much so that, when my clients will ask me about nutrition, anytime, come to my house anytime, check my fridge anytime, see what I have in my lunchbox anytime, and you see what I do. And it's my life. Motivation is more than just words. It is a way of life. If your clients can see what you're doing, they will be motivated. Now, you don't expect all your clients to be like you, but you can definitely give them solutions because you've been there, you've done that. It makes you more of a credible source. So I hope that resonates with you, Ed.
Coco Ed. By the way, Ed is also he's actually your Chinese counterpart. Well, I'm telling you, he's your Mandarin translator for your courses in Taiwan, right, Ben?
Correct. Ed is one of our lecturers. So he's a very close friend, but he's also one of my lecturers that is based in Taiwan. He runs two very successful gyms, and recently he's just run a very successful physique transformation course, an ASP course, purely taught in Mandarin. So this is the first Mandarin course, and he'll be running another 2 coming up soon. So highly sought after coach, and definitely highly regarded coach as well. So thank you for sitting in on this, Ed, and actually asking this question, because the questions that he asks, he always likes to read my mind into why I do certain things. So rather than find the answer. He wants to know why I think that way. So teaching a man how to fish rather than giving him fish. And I really appreciate that.
Okay, this one is coming from. Oh, Jolene says thank you. She says you were spot on her ankle issue.
Great.
And okay, let's go to Jackie first, and then Cece has another question. Jackie, she says 12-year-old kid, overweight, female, 66 kg. How would you advise her to lose weight by getting active and not just starve? She hates exercising. I'm going to put this here for us to see.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, it's very important to read or see the words that come out of an individual, because the words, how they phrase their sentences, will give you a perspective of what they're asking. And in Jackie's question right here, she talks about exercise. Now, the word with 12-year-old kids, especially the word exercise, has a negative connotation. It's not something they enjoy. When you're dealing with kids, movement needs to be enjoyable. And that's all you got to think about. It's what do you think you can do to make movement enjoyable for this 12-year-old? Is it shopping? Is it making them walk around a shopping center and looking at things? If that's enjoyable movement, then movement is what she needs to do, because at the end of the day, we're talking here about an overweight person. Now, 66 kilos, look, 66 kilos is not obese, it's overweight, depending on the height of the individual as well. I assume this individual is going to be quite short, but movement is important. What movement do you think is going to help this person engage, feel like it's fun? It could be shopping, it could be dancing, right? It could be a sport, it could be Zumba, it could be things like that. Now, you got to think outside the square. Exercise often means put into four walls and you got to do something. You got to count reps, you got to count time, and some people don't like that. They don't gravitate towards that. When I train my junior athletes, a lot of the time is all movement based. It's primal movements, is what they do on a daily basis. I work with body weight. I don't load them. There's no need to load them out because they're working around coordination. That's what it is. It's movement, Jackie. And again, I assume this is Jackie that's done my courses, Jackie. Excellent. Hi, Jackie. Movement is super important. Any sort of movement that you can get them to do, making sure that they enjoy that movement, is key to your solution.
I love that answer so much, Ben, because that totally just mind blew me on seeing it from a different perspective of shopping. Who would have thought shopping could be something that people enjoy as movement?
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, this one is coming from, okay, I'm just going to go with this question that I got from a friend on WhatsApp. And this is, let me get a question. Okay, she asked Ben, her mom this is from Mira from Singapore, and she's asking, mom is starting chemo. Can she take magnesium supplement to assist her sleep, and what food is good for her? I'm just going to write this here for us to see. Yeah.
Okay. Anything to do with a medical condition, especially cancers, is not my field. I'm not a medical doctor. So I always, before I start talking to a client, I'll say that first. It's not my area of expertise, and so I don't delve into it. I look into holistic health. And so I do not give any sort of medical solutions to say you need to be on a certain drug or go away from the drug. That's completely based on what the doctor will tell you. Whereas in terms of lifestyle, I can definitely help in that particular area. So again, if you're not sure, if it crosses your expertise, refer out. So whether she can go on a certain supplement or not, Mira would have to ask the doctor. That's based on what the doctor actually says. And if the doctor gives a green light, sure, go for it. But in general, if you're looking at using any sort of magnesium is one of the most widely used, I would say, drugs, if it can be called a drug. It's actually nutraceuticals, what your body needs. It's most widely used in hospitals. Hospitals use a lot of magnesium to placate stress, to lower cortisol levels. But the type of magnesium that is being used has to be a multi-chelated magnesium. That means different types of magnesium that they use that is able to be absorbed by the body efficiently. Magnesium oxide, for example, or magnesium citrate are cheaper sources of magnesiums that are used frequently, and they are not good sources. Okay, so do not use an oxide, do not use a magnesium citrate. You look at different sources, other sources of magnesium that you can use. And if she wants to use different sources of magnesium, she would have to consult the doctor to see if there are any sort of contraindications with the medication that her mother is actually taking through. So that I'm going to leave it to her. With regards to nutrition, what we understand as well is when someone goes through chemo, there is a lot of research recently done on the reishi mushroom. Okay, so reishi mushroom, if she actually goes onto PubMed, 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 and Googles reishi and chemo, you will start to find some papers and some studies on the reishi mushroom and how reishi mushroom actually can help to, in combination with chemotherapy, help to alleviate, I guess, the symptoms from a patient, actually help the patient recover faster. All right, so PubMed, have a look at reishi mushrooms. Yeah, so that's a supplement that they potentially could look into. Again, any sort of supplement that is taken needs to go through the GP or needs to go through the cancer specialist. All right, food-wise, the thing about any sort of chemotherapy is that it will destroy a lot of gut flora. So when you're taking chemotherapy, stress is extremely high, your gut flora is going to be destroyed. So when you're taking foods firstly needs to be easily broken down and absorbable. It needs to be foods that have less of an inflammatory response on the body. So any sort of refined foods is what you want to stay off. Okay, so refined foods, breads, for example, is a refined food. Rices, for example, are whole foods because it is as nature intended it to be. So you want to stay off refined foods in general. A lot of sweets is probably what you want to stay off as well. So refined sugars, natural sugars like fruits, not an issue, but refined sugars is what you want to stay off. All right, so you need to look at whole foods that are absorbable by the body and easily broken down. Now, in saying so as well, things like broths are going to be extremely helpful. So I normally utilize a lot of bone broths, which can be great. But bone broths, and this comes the contraindication of bone broths, is that if you're going to be using bones, you need to be choosing good grass-fed organic bones. And depending on the country that you're in, that may be quite difficult. So often you can go on to buy bone broth concentrates. You can buy it from iHerb, you can buy it from websites, and these are grass-fed organic bovine bone broths or wild-caught fish broths that you can actually buy, and you can mix it with soups that you make. And this helps basically with the gut absorption and nutrient absorption. So during chemotherapy, you want to make sure that the nutrient absorption is maximized for the patient more than anything else.
Ben, just adding on to that one. So what if a person is vegan and obviously they can't take the bone broth? How would you recommend or how would you advise?
It's going to be difficult. So amino acids is what it is, but individual amino acids that you're taking from a supplement does not match up to, let's say, for example, you can take essential amino acids. So you got, 12 to 15 amino acids in a supplement, but 12 to 15 amino acids, some of which are synthetically produced, they do not match up to the nutrition of a whole food. And a whole food has more than just specific amino acids, which is a macronutrient. It contains micronutrients as well. And to what we understand, micronutrients is a broad spectrum term that is used to refer to things like minerals. Right? We know that there are a whole heap of minerals. Right now, if I tell you to list the minerals off the top of your head, you might go magnesium, potassium, sodium, calcium, and so forth. But there are 3,800 minerals. So there are a lot of minerals. On top of that, if we look at things like phytochemicals, which are purely found in plant food, they're over 4,500 and counting, and it keeps growing up every single day because science doesn't know enough about it. So, unless you're eating whole foods, you're not actually putting enough micronutrients into your system. You can put the macronutrients, but not enough micronutrients. And we understand that micronutrients is your limiting factor, is the key to allowing all the chemical reactions in your body to function optimally. You do not have enough micronutrients, that actually stops. Right? So for a vegan, it's going to be difficult, 100%. I'm not going to lie down here.
Okay. All right, Ben, we have actually passed the 1 hour mark, but there are Well, there's still questions coming in, so I leave it to you. Shall we take another 15 minutes max, or?
Yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's do 15 minutes, and we'll schedule the next podcast. And again, if you find that something like this is helpful for you guys, tell your friends, put it out there. The more questions that come through, the more I'll be happy to sit down and answer your questions. Again, my goal is to give you value, is to make sure that the questions that you ask, you learn to ask it specifically, and you get value for yourself, for your family, or for your friends.
Okay, this question is a long one, Ben. It's from Andy. What's up, Andy? He's got an MMA gym in Malaysia, and he asks, want to know that often a lot of MMA practitioners trains a lot of HIIT kind of routines, and that sometimes lead to loss of muscle mass instead of fats. If comparing to Westerner MMA athletes, they are huge and lean. Is that because of their culture and food intake in their country are different as overall? Thank you.
When you look at MMA, I want you, Andy, to take away all the preconceptions of training a fighter. Because let's say you train a boxer, for example. A lot of boxers still succumb to a very old school style training. If you look at Rocky Balboa, for example, that used to run and box and run and box, a lot of boxers still do that running. But my question is, when you look at the sport itself, we need to understand the science of the sport. And this is where sports science comes in. When you look at the sport itself, what is the energy systems being utilized in the sport? Energy systems means that if you are, you get a fighter in the sport, you need to understand how long is the fighter going all out at it? How long does the fighter need to rest within one round before they have another break? So these are energy systems. You need to plan your workout according to the energy systems that's being used in the sport. But in MMA, because it's such a varied sport, every fighter comes in with one thing or two things that they're good at. Some fighters will have a background in BJJ. Some fighters will have a background in kickboxing. Some fighters will have a background in boxing. Fighters play to their advantages, which means that if they're good in boxing, they will be more of a boxer. And so if you're looking at strategy, you learn to take them down by the legs. If you're looking at a kickboxer, they use their legs, you take them down by something else. If you're a BJJ person, you're more overall. There is a different way of taking them down. So we work with a lot of fighters down here, right? The way you work with your fighter is not try to isolate one way of how the body looks or what the fighter needs to do. You need to understand what areas you want to improve in this fighter. If this fighter is very, very big, then majority of the time you realize that this fighter is very strong. That means they would have a lot of strength, but not enough endurance. Your role then is to create a program that would enhance their endurance. Drop the strength to a degree and enhance the endurance if you want to make them a more complete fighter. If you want them only just to focus on their strength, then you bear in mind you will only make them weaker in any other aspect of the sport. Okay, so again, this is more of I'm answering it from a theoretical point of view. Right? If your fighter is smaller, that means they're fast, but they don't lay very big or heavy strikes, then your goal is to focus on their strength. So in the gym, you need to train strength, not endurance, because they already have the endurance. So yes, they're going to sacrifice some endurance, but they're going to get more strength as an overall fighter. This is why you get seasons when you work with fighters, off seasons and on seasons, right? Now, the off seasons is where you work on what they're lacking. It could be endurance, it could be speed, it could be power, it could be strength, it could be a particular area. And you learn to incorporate or integrate that back into the fight itself once they're moving into the season or the on season where they're actually targeting an opponent. So you need to peak them. This is the science of periodization. So in regards to your question, Andy, it's not so much about one or. It's not about Western fighters or Asian fighters being small and fast and Western fighters being big and ripped. It's about what type of person enters the sport, how you need to improve the person in the different dimensions of the sport. If they're a big fighter, if it's strength you need to improve on, then you work on that in the off season. If it's endurance you need to work on, then you need to work on that in the off season. Okay, so depending on what you want to work with on this particular client, it differs. Okay, and again, body style, body type, don't focus so much on how they look. We have seen, I mean, you look at Bellator, you look at MMA, you realize that the biggest The rippers athletes are not necessarily your best athletes. Work with what is necessary for the client so that they can be optimal in their sport. Okay, you're not entering a bodybuilding competition.
Mm-hmm. And now another question. This is from Cece again, Ben. Then I'm going to shift over to an Instagram question. She says, Ben, you mentioned about estrogen contributing to the fat accumulation in body. Chicken and beef have estrogen as well, while eating lots causes external estrogen that contributing to fat
Yes.
accumulation. We're
Answer
eating
is
lots,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. If your beef is from a commercial source, if your chicken is from a commercial source, yes, it will. Milk is the other one. Okay, a lot of milk. Any milk bought in the supermarket is going to be high in estrogens because cows are pumped full of estrogens in order for the female cow to continue its milk production. So if you're drinking a lot of milk, that's your main source of estrogen. Stop it.
Wow. I would love to do one just full topic on xenoestrogens, Ben. Where did xenoestrogens come from?
Where, I mean, there's so many different sources. Xeno means false estrogen. So these are molecules from the environment that resemble the natural estrogen molecules of the body, and they fight for the estrogen receptor sites. They can come from plastics. A lot of them come from petrochemicals, so from petroleum, and the chemicals that come with petroleum in the production of things like parabens, food containers, plastics, fragrances. Those are all xenoestrogens.
And where did those come from? Humans. Humans made them again. We're smart, aren't we? Considering that we're so high, we're so upper class as a human production, as a human system. Okay, this one is from Lazanne, and let me see, where's this question? This is, okay, another kid question, Ben. She asked, could you recommend some really awesome home workouts for a 6-year-old? She has a six year
For
old
a
daughter.
6-year-old, yeah, absolutely. Again, it's all about fun. So what is a fun workout that the kid likes to do? So any child that's growing up to the age of 12, the role of the parent is to expose the child to as many different sports or movements as possible. Don't lock your child into a specific sport. Now, I know a lot of countries may do that, where they lock their child really early into a specific sport. But if you look at the nature of that particular sport itself, let's say gymnastics or acrobatics in China, for example, that sport, even though it's one sport, it requires a lot of different movements, varied movements from the child. So you're still exposing the child to varied movements. The more different sporting movements you expose the child, the better the child is going to be in life, because that actually works their coordination. Coordination is a skill that tends to plateau roughly by the age of 12. Okay, so it's something you want to develop in a child. Get them exposed to different sports. Anything that you find that they've got an interest in, start to expose them to. Get them doing it. Now, one thing you realize as well is that a lot of parents, based on the mentalities of parents nowadays, will try to force their child into a particular sport to excel in that sport. Not for the child, but because it's for the parent. I advise against that. I would say go with what you feel is good for your child based on what your child gravitates towards. So if your child is gravitating towards a particular sport and you expose them to the sport, let the child play it. You don't have to force a child into anything, because at the end of the day, if the child likes the sport, the child would want to spend more time with the sport. This is where they can specialize later in life. Specialization of a sport should not happen before 12. Okay, so expose them. Martial arts is great. Soccer is great. Dancing is great. Anything that allows them to enjoy themselves and move is what you want. Get them moving in all sorts of different planes. Get them jumping. Get them any sort of movement. That's the main thing.
Okay, one person randomly said, I'm never going to have children. Okay. All right, this one comes from Jamie, and she's asking, how do you think the fitness industry will change post our post-restricted movement order, post-quarantine, post-lockdown, for freelance and boutique chains?
I think a lot of people, when the doors open, people will still be, even though they want to go into the gym, there'll be a good amount of people that still will be scared of going out. And so a lot of them will still stick to a lot of online-based programs. So more than you worried about the fears of the outside people, which you can't as a personal trainer, you worry about what you can do from a strategic point of view. And Jamie, for you, I think right now is a time where you have learned, if not to be more proficient online, because that's what a lot of people look to. With the order being lifted, people are now able to go outside to exercise more, perhaps even have access to a gym. This is where you need to continue to work your skills online as a coach, because you need to provide physical training skills, but also have a proficiency online and a presence online to help your clients, because a lot of these clients may not want to come back to a set gym. They may want to do things in their own home, bearing in mind a lot of these clients may also have purchased equipment. So the skills of the coach needs to be more diversified, more than just personal one-on-one training. It's also online one-on-one training. So work with your skills rather than the people.
Okay. And this one comes from Lazanne again, Ben. And I think this would be maybe our last question on Instagram. And she asks, are you into biohacking? If so, what are the biohacking gadgets or methods you use?
Define biohacking. But I mean, the definitions of biohacking are wide and varied, right? Biohacking is basically hacking your body from a biological standpoint to make it live longer, to make it more energetic. There are many ways of biohacking. You can biohack training, you can biohack longevity. A lot of documentaries have actually come up on biohacking longevity. A lot of documentaries have come up biohacking thinking and how you can actually stay awake for longer and let your brain work better. If you've seen the show Limitless, it's based on biohacking. It's based on taking a pill that allows your brain to wake up and keep your brain alive and kicking and full of energy for hours on end, so much so that it expands your ability to think, process, and get things done. So biohacking can be good depending on what your definition is. But I think at the end of the day, I'm going to put it simply to you. The body is essentially a product of evolution. We are essentially in an old organism. If you believe in the Bible, we are 6,000-7,000 years old. If you believe in evolution itself, we're millions of years old. Well, whatever you believe in, we are not something of the future. Our genes, our DNA has hardly changed in all these different years. And so what our body naturally gravitates towards has a significance. We have an appendix for a reason, right? But now, anything to do with appendicitis or any little pain that you have, you remove the appendix. So doctors seem to override this. Biohacking talks about the fact that if you sleep less, and you start playing around with the sleeping patterns, that you can potentially get more done in your day. So you can utilize a lot more of your time to be more fulfilling towards what you need to do, get tasks done, but you sleep less because sleep is not necessary per se. Well, if you're looking at it from one point of view, that the less sleep, you key your body into sleeping less. There is a system of actually doing it, Linora, and it's a documented system where you can minimize sleep. And so what happens with that is you get more productive in getting things done, but the initial phase of doing that would mean that your energy levels would drop and so forth. Sleep is a time of your life where a lot of people feel is useless because you're doing nothing. Well, you got to think about this. Sleep is recovery. Our body is innately ancient. We need this recovery. We are not made out of iron or machines or metal. We are organic. Sleep is a time of the day where your growth hormone levels are, I would say, skyrocketed in that sense. This is where you replenish growth hormone. This is where your body heals itself. This is where your hormones rebalance itself. This is where you learn to become more insulin sensitive. The lack of sleep has actually shown to get your body into all sorts of diseases. This is why when you look at any sort of healthcare workers out there that work night shifts or graveyard shifts where they don't get enough sleep, they're the ones who tend to get more sick. They're the ones who tend to get fatter. They're the ones who tend to get poorer health, more stress, eating crap food because their hormones are not balanced and they're not in line with the circadian rhythms, which is the rhythms of the sun. Okay, this is what our bodies are innately tuned to. And so biohacking can be good for a reason of productivity, but for the bigger picture, by looking at how the body actually functions, it actually backfires. It shoots your body backwards. All right, so be aware of how you biohack. A lot of biohacks will mean taking certain supplements to enhance your function. Well, if you are looking at specifically and strictly for enhancing the function itself, it might be good. But then what are the contraindications around enhancing the function, that particular function? Does it mean that then you get sicker? Does it mean that you age more? Does it mean that your life is shortened? You just got to look at the contraindications around that.
I always wonder if, like, say, for example, where I've read, if you take a particular supplement, it's just to enhance it, but then do you become, what's the word? Do you become more, it's like you need
Depends.
it. Yeah, dependent on it. Saying
Yes,
this is
some
why it's
supplements.
necessary.
Some supplements, yes. Some supplements, no. Some supplements, you really do need it, because the nutrition that we take nowadays are from depleted soils. That means a lot of the minerals that we will need for our body and optimal functioning, we are not taking it in, because the foods that we are eating are grown on soils that are completely deprived, depleted of nutrients. Okay, so we are overeating and undernourishing ourselves. This is why supplements are important, but then you need to look at the right type of supplements. Again, a lot of this information is found on the learnasp.com site. So please hop on there. You will get information that you will need for your questions.
Awesome. And with that, I think we have to close. That would be our last question because we ran more than 15 minutes, Ben. But thank you all so much for all the questions. They were really good. And there's so much that we can talk on. I mean, there could be a one totally separate thing on just sleep alone, Ben. I think I myself have a lot of questions on that. And then even for the menstrual cycle, now I think that'd be a very, very great topic for males and females to understand, because even some females don't even understand their own cycle, and we have it. So okay, we can take a look at those different things. But guys, thank you so much for coming in. And this whole video is going to be available on YouTube, and it's also going to be available on Facebook. Instagram, I'm not too sure yet. I'm still figuring that out. But in the meantime, as Ben mentioned, go over to the Learn ASP website.
Learn-ASP.
There we go. I purposely spent quite a while just making this little pop-up for you, okay, Ben? The www.learn-asp.com. So go there, check out the subjects, and please, utilize the bundle code, which is available. And with my code Linora, there's also a special code as well. So do that. And Ben, go ahead, tell where can people find you?
If you're interested in this information, honestly, the best resource is the learnasp.com site, which is where what Linora has just put up. So it's learn-asp.com. This is where you get the seminars, and you can actually take your time to absorb the information that I talk about. It will answer these questions that you have asked. The second thing we need to look at is the Instagram handle tags, which is at Ben Performance Coach. That's mine, at Ben Performance Coach. And you can get information. Again, if you run through my clips that I put up, a lot of the questions that you have asked, this clips will give you a good background on.
Good foundation. Guys, once again, thank you so much. And do come up with your questions. And I really do hope that this added value to your day. Please share it wherever possible, because really good info during our chat. Okay, Ben, thank you very much for taking the time. I know that you have to rush off to your family, and also you're doing things at the gym to see how things can move online as well. So thank you very much for doing this with me.
Pleasure.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
we'll see
guys.
you soon.
Yes, guys, remember, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel and click on the bell for notifications. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.
See you soon.